If you're an Eagles fan waking up this morning, you have to be sick. Not because of one call here or there, but the fact that you had Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in a vulnerable position in the Super Bowl, but your own mistakes helped them snatch the crown from your head late. Now, that isn't to say that Mahomes and the Chiefs didn't earn it, because they did. But this year's version of the Philly special was a piping hot plate of breaking down in crucial moments. Now, offensively, Jalen Hurts was very good outside of a couple RPO reads and a fumble that ended up keeping the Chiefs in the game early when they were able to scoop and score it. But the shocking development in my eyes was how bad the Eagles were defensively. And I'm not talking about tackling or even alignment. They just blew simple man coverages against the same looks over and over in the red zone. That vaunted Eagles pass rush was held in check all night, and on a bum ankle, Mahomes was still able to be effective running the ball. Somehow, Travis Kelce's still running wide open like the girl in the hills from The Sound of Music, and the defense looked like they were taking punches instead of delivering them outside of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now, I didn't like the defensive holding call at the end, but in the grand scheme of things, it was the Eagles' mistakes and the ability of the Chiefs to capitalize on those mistakes that ultimately led to the Eagles' downfall. Congratulations to the Chiefs, but if you're a Philly fan today, the hangover isn't the only reason you feel sick this morning. But David, just kind of quick overview, your thoughts yesterday. I don't think the call at the end, number one, cost the Eagles the game. I didn't like the call because I felt like it was close enough to let it go, and you had been letting them play the whole game. It's kind of like when we watch basketball, college basketball especially, and you're letting them play the whole game, and then in the last 2 minutes, you want to call ticky-tack fouls to get them to the free throw line.
Sure.
I can understand both sides of it. People say it was a hold. People say that it wasn't a hold. I just feel like if it's that close, you let the game play out and you call it the way that you called it the whole game. But that was not the reason the Eagles lost. The Eagles had a lot of chances to punch KC in the mouth and go ahead and punch their lights out. And the longer you let Mahomes and them breathe and you give them an extra touchdown and pretty much a second one on a punt return, that is a formula for how you lose. And if you're a Philly fan, the Eagles lost the Super Bowl. The Union lost the MLS final, and the Phillies lost the World Series. At least the Sixers won't make it there to let you down, right?
Hey, it could be worse. There's a lot of cities that would rather trade, that outcome. But yeah, that's kind of tough. 3 professional sports losing in the championship in 3 months, something like that.
First city ever.
Yeah, look, everyone is focused on the call at the end this morning, and I understand this is a tough situation. When you review it, it's defensive holding. Like, he held the guy. So everyone seems to be upset that don't make that call in that situation, right? Which, if that's what you're having to say is like, hey, don't call this in the fourth quarter, but you could call it in the first quarter, then you already haven't done enough as a team, I think, to win the football game. Because it wasn't, the referee's fault that there are 2 wide open receivers in the red zone.
Not at all.
Right? The toughest place to be wide open on the field is in the red zone. Mm-hmm. The Eagles' defense allowed Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney to be wide open in the red zone. It wasn't the referees who gave up the longest punt return in Super Bowl history, right? It wasn't the referees who allowed Patrick Mahomes to have a 25-yard scramble on a bum ankle to get into the red zone and set up for a big first down. So the bottom line is this. One of the top 3 greatest coaches in NFL history, Andy Reid, right up there with Bill Belichick, Vince Lombardi, went into halftime, made his second half adjustments with a generational quarterback who came back and led them back into the football game. And down the stretch, you saw why Patrick Mahomes is a 2-time MVP and a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Look, I hate it for the Eagles, had a 10-point lead at halftime, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs came back and won the football game.
Yeah, first drive coming out of halftime, the Chiefs marched right down the field, scored that touchdown. Which was huge because we know the momentum that the Eagles had going in. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm not saying that I don't think it was defensive holding, but they had let those plays go the whole night. Like, if you watch the way Travis Kelce, when he was on the ball, was coming off the line, if you look on the other side with the Eagles and watch A.J. Brown and some of the hand fighting that was going on out there, there was a double move one time where A.J. almost got pulled down. And right here, if he had yanked back, I understand it. Now, by the rule, by the definition, is this a hold? Yes, I get that. I get that. But again, I go back to the basketball analogy. If you're going to call the game one way in the first quarter, call it the same way in the fourth quarter. Because at the end of the day, if you're calling it consistent, it's like in baseball, right? What do we say? If you're going to call that a strike, call it a strike both ways. If you're going to call that a ball, call it a ball both ways. If you're going to call it a strike in the first inning, call it a strike in the ninth inning. That's where I think it kind of gets a little iffy, because the funny part to me is, and if you look, you had some help coming over the top. It looked like somewhat of a soft bracket or a relay there at the end. I just don't know, David, if it's blatant enough in that situation to call it. That was my thing. Because I don't think they didn't call this in the first quarter. That was my problem.
So that to your point on the balls and strikes there, if you have a ball that crosses in the strike zone, in the little window that you see on TV, and it crosses in the strike zone, and everyone's upset because that was called a ball for 8 innings. It is weird for all of a sudden on the last pitch of the ball game for it to be called a strike, but it's still in the strike zone.
Yeah, it's a debate of keeping the flow of the game the same, so you always want the players to dictate the outcome. And the players did dictate the outcome in this game. That one call, the balls on that referee to throw that flag in that situation, number one, to me, that was one of the most shocking parts to me there, Blaine.
Well, I just want consistency. That's all I want when it comes to refereeing. You saw earlier in this game, especially with the plays across the middle, that holding should have been called, and it didn't. But it didn't come down to one play, and it comes down to, if anything, the Eagles' front seven on defense. Best defense getting to the quarterback the entire year. You know how many sacks you had? You had 0. And I get it's Patrick Mahomes, but it's still Patrick Mahomes on a bum ankle. Where was Hassan Reddick in this game?
Yeah.
Just tearing through the playoffs. Didn't touch the quarterback once. And I know the Chiefs are good up front. They're the reason in the Super Bowl. But the elite and the depth of this Eagles front seven on defense just didn't show up in this game. Didn't make any adjustments. You go back to the Kadarius Toney touchdown with the dummy motion that splits it right back out. The two guys separate, completely wide open. Then you see the same thing in the second half. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Andy Reid and this offense and this football team in general. I mean, you come out in the second half and completely dominate this game. I believe, how many points did the Eagles score in the third quarter? 3?
3.
You know, so
they scored 14. They scored 11 points.
11.
I think,
so this is what you do when you have an experienced team that's been there before and a quarterback who's been there before. I watched Patrick Mahomes this entire game. I didn't see panic on his face at one point in this game, and that goes a long way. And the same thing with the coaching staff. We go back to that one drive of Nick Sirianni. It's 2nd and 5, and you throw it 2 times in a row. Then you go back to your identity late in the game when you're playing catch up. So credits to the Eagles, especially. I've been tough on the Eagles, Chiefs, after they traded Tyreek Hill. Not as many explosive plays, but you saw Andy Reid have an entirely different offense and good enough to win the Super Bowl with not a lot of huge impact players on this offense. Let's be honest. I mean, outside of Travis Kelce, Juju's okay. Kadarius Toney was pretty good this year. Pacheco's coming along, but not a lot of impact guys. If you go to that other side of the offense, you have Devontae Smith. You have guys on this team. It's just amazing when Andy Reid's done with the Chiefs.
Well, you looked at defensive touchdown, right? The defensive touchdown and the special teams setting them up to knock on the door at the 5-yard line. That was worth 14 points.
Yep.
All right, worth 14 points. The Eagles scored 35 points.
Yeah.
Okay. The Chiefs played, I think, decent on defense. And we're going to get to Nick Bolton, but I don't think the Chiefs played well on defense. It was the Eagles defense against the Chiefs offense that shocked me, kind of like Blaine was saying.
$20 donation.
Appreciate it. We got some crazy donations last night.
Let's keep it going. Congrats to my boys for coming back for the win. Also, I agree it should have been a no call at the end. Bradberry admitted that he held, so can we stop pretending the refs wanted anyone except the Eagles to win that game?
Yep.
Well, look, again, I don't think the refs personally wanted either team to win that game. I thought the fumble to non-fumble call was correct. I thought that was an incomplete pass, and they're going to let fumbles go. The reason they do that is so there can be a clear recovery. Mm-hmm. So if it is a fumble, they can say, all right, well, we're not just guessing on who recovered it, or the ball just stopped and everybody stopped. Well, we knew that the Chiefs recovered it. So I thought the refs in general, I loved the way they were calling the game for the first 3 quarters and 12 minutes. It was just that call at the end. I thought, again, by rule, call it holding. Bradberry said it was holding. Flow of the game, we could argue this till the cows come home.
Yeah, James Bradberry at least did come out and
I want to give James Bradberry credit. He stayed and took every question from the media. You talk about a professional. You talk about somebody that owning up to their responsibility off the field. I think that shows you a lot about James Bradberry's character.
We talk about great coaching, right? Again, you have to think Andy Reid is putting his players in positions to get situations
For
like
sure.
that, to get breaks like that. Hey, let's get Juju Smith-Schuster on a whip route against James Bradberry. Maybe we get a defensive holding call. Let's put a ball up to him on a wheel route, see if we get a defensive pass interference call. So again, coaching comes down to this, to try and get these situations and matchups that are favorable for your team.
For sure.
We saw that especially in the red zone.
He's one of the best ever at putting the pawns in the right place. Hey, you too. Appreciate you guys checking us out. Do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, turn that notification bell on. If you like the content you hear and want to keep spreading, that's the best way to do it. And we appreciate you guys. Remember, without you, there is no us. So hit the button.